A 6-week adventure in the Canadian wilderness nearly ends in tragedy for 17-year-old Alex Messenger. A snap of a twig, a flash of brown fur, and a 600-pound grizzly is upon him. Dancing around one another like gladiators in a ring, the two prepare to duel. But one swipe with its paw, and Alex is sent crashing to the ground. 100 miles from civilization, Alex must rely on his companions if he is to make it out alive. Hit like and subscribe. This is Fierce. In August 2005, a group of 6 young adventurers set out on an expedition across the remote Canadian Northwest Territories. It was supposed to be the adventure of a lifetime, canoeing across the scenic lakes, battling the whitewater rapids of the rivers, and camping in the great wilderness. But for one of them, the adventure almost came to a dead end. 4 weeks into their 6-week adventure, 17-year-old Alex Messenger left the group's campsite to climb a nearby ridge. It was the highest point for more than 50 miles and promised 360-degree views from the top. Onward and upwards, Alex climbed higher and higher until eventually he reached the ridge. The views were incredible. He could see where they had come from and where they were headed. Lake upon lake, all interconnected or separated by short passages of land through which the team would portage their canoes. But he was not alone up on that ridge. As Alex scanned the horizon, he noticed something amongst the bushes. A flash of brown out of the corner of his eye. Suddenly, his heart leapt in his chest. He knew what it was without even seeing it properly. Adrenaline surged through his body, an overwhelming feeling to run as fast as he could back to the campsite. But he didn't. He resisted the urge. The group had been told that they would be lucky to see even one bear on their expedition, but they knew the dangers, they knew the risks, and they all brought bear spray with them. Bear spray that, unfortunately for Alex, at that moment in time, was left back inside his tent. His feet were frozen to the ground. The tips of his fingers tingled with the adrenaline as the bear stepped out into full view. It was a massive animal, weighing around 600 pounds or 270 kilograms. The grizzly stood 4 feet at the shoulder. The pair eyed each other suspiciously. It seemed that the bear had been just as startled as Alex was, and that is never a good thing when you're in bear country. The grizzly jumped forward 2 paces and then stopped. Alex's training kicked in. He spoke in a low, calming voice and backed away very slowly. He lowered his eyes, avoiding eye contact. As he took slow, steady steps backwards, the bear jumped forward once again. It was equally unsure what to do. It was testing him to see if he was a threat, to see if he would fight back. Every ounce of Alex's body was imploring the bear not to charge, trying to convey to the bear that he was no threat. But it didn't work. The bear charged. It covered the 30 feet or so in seconds, and in those seconds, Alex marveled at the speed of the animal, at the agility, how such a massive beast could cover that ground so rapidly. When the bear was just 15 feet away, Alex could feel the ground shaking under the weight of the bear as it pounded along the ground. He could feel the vibrations as each of its heavy paws thundered towards him. He had nowhere to run to. He had little time to react. All he had on him was his camera. Instinctively, he threw it at the bear at the last second. It hit it squarely in the face, and the bear turned its head slightly. As it did so, Alex jumped out of the way. The bear immediately came to a halt and wheeled around, coming for Alex once more. The two circled each other like a bullfighter in the ring. The bear was swiping at Alex. It was getting closer. Its 3-inch claws smacked Alex on the shoulder and across the back, expelling air from his lungs. But he remained on his feet. Although Alex remembers every detail whilst he and the bear were circling each other, as though it was a long drawn-out duel, it in fact only lasted a few seconds. He could smell the stench of the animal, like a dog that had never been washed, musty and unkempt fur, the smell of rotten meat on its breath. The bear growled and grunted. Then it lifted its enormous paw and took another swipe at Alex. The paw hit him across the face. The force was immense, as though the bear was swatting a mosquito, as though he was as insignificant to the bear as a fly. He was sent crashing to the ground. He landed with a thud, beaten and dazed. In the milliseconds that Alex flew through the air, he thought of his family. He thought of his friends. He thought he was going to die. He was terrified. He wasn't ready to say goodbye yet. He wasn't ready to let go. He landed hard on the ground, landing on his tailbone, shock waves sent through his body. As soon as he hit the ground, the bear lunged on him. It bit into his thigh. The pain was indescribable, and he blacked out. What happened next, Alex doesn't know. He knew that playing dead could stop a bear from attacking. If it thought it had neutralized the threat, then it would leave him alone. Alex doesn't know how long the bear continued to maul him, but when he came to, he saw the bear lumbering away from his limp body. He lay there for a few seconds, the searing pain in his leg building and building. As he watched the grizzly disappear over the ridge, he made the decision to try and get back to his friends, back to the campsite. Somehow, he managed to make it back to them. Dan, the group's 27-year-old guide, took charge of the situation and checked Alex over. Using their satellite phone, the group contacted emergency services, and rescue via an evacuation plane was out of the question. It wasn't possible to make that sort of rescue from their location. The nearest settlement was 100 miles from them. The group was stuck in the wilderness. Now, in order to save their companion, they would have to get themselves out. They loaded up the canoes and continued on their route, heading for the small village of Baker Lake in the Arctic territory of Nunavut. From there, they could get the medical help Alex so desperately needed. The group headed down the white water, battling the rapids before crossing the vast lakes, inching closer to their destination. Alex paddled when he could. It was a grueling 5-day evacuation route. Finally, the group made it to the small settlement of Baker Lake. Alex was hooked up to antibiotics for 12 hours before being deemed stable enough to fly south to Winnipeg. He was given rabies shots and slowly began to recover. It took an entire year before he regained full motion in his right leg. He estimated that the attack had lasted less than 60 seconds. It hadn't been a predatory attack. If it had been, then the outcome would have probably been a lot worse. The bear had been caught off guard. It had been caught by surprise and attacked out of defense. Alex was lucky to have survived. He was lucky to have made it out alive, but even now, 20 years later, the brief but brutal encounter has had a profound psychological effect on his life. He is easily startled. The simple snap of a twig can trigger flashbacks and send him into a fight-or-flight response. At first, he struggled to make sense of the attack, trying to find meaning in what he went through. He has since written a book about his encounter, which has had a cathartic effect on him. He joined his local volunteer search and rescue team, using his wilderness expertise and knowledge of survival to help others.